First mistake, didn't turn on the microphone. It's going to be a day of mistakes. So I'll ask you to forgive me for all the cock-ups in advance. They're absolutely unforgivable. But we're going to make them anyway. That's Mirador. You never absolutely know what's going to happen next on Mirador. The purists hate us. But those people who like a little bit of variety, a little spice thrown into the mix, welcome to a couple of hours of absolute mayhem. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Anyway, I'm Keith Hayes. This is Mirador Television, broadcasting from the Black Horse in Lewes, East Sussex, in the United Kingdom. And it's nowhere near as nice a day as it was yesterday. In fact, we've got a little bit of rain forecast. And it's rather grey and overcast. Will we ever see that beautiful weather again? Every time it disappears, I think it'll never come back. And then one morning, it's sunny and bright, and everybody's full of the joys of the world, and I get carried away with it. It's a couple of minutes past 8. On 3 minutes past 8, in fact, on the 21st day of May 2024. The strange thing is the first quarter of this year just flashed by. I couldn't believe the speed with which it disappeared. May has simply crawled. It's been the slowest month that I can remember in a long, long while. It's all conceptual, of course. It must be something happening in our own lives that either speeds time up or slows it down. Anyway, for me, it slowed it right down. Shall we get on with the news? There's really only one major story today. And that is, as the Express put it, a day of shame for the British state. the Metro. 40 years of bloody cover-up. "40 years of bloody cover-up," headlines the Metro, as it leads on the release of the Infected Blood Scandal Public Inquiry Report. The report found the scandal, which claimed 3,000 lives and affected 30,000, could have been avoided and was covered up for decades. The paper pictures people embracing after the release of the report following a 5-year inquiry. Of course, if government is sensible, if the elected politicians are sensible, they'll use this opportunity to, while the civil service, the all-powerful civil service, is fighting a rearguard action, will use the opportunity to curb its power. Not do away with it, not undertake huge reform, because that would mean chaos in our governance. Almost everything that we do is touched by Whitehall and the Mandarins. But at least make it accountable, which it has become not in recent times. And this is the opportunity. Because it is they who will have done the cover-up. They will have managed this whole thing to disastrous results, I may add, but nonetheless. It's really their responsibility. And now is the time to make sure that we have a fairer and juster society without an elite, an untouchable, unaccountable. So, a bloody cover-up. The Daily Express. "This is a day of shame for British state." The Express says, "This is a day of shame for the British state." Those are the words of Prime Minister Rishi Sunak in the Commons during his apology over the infected blood scandal. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer also apologised for his party's involvement as families watched on from the Commons viewing gallery. Momentous day, actually, in the Commons. It doesn't very often happen that an unqualified apology comes to the lips of a Prime Minister. Not from a sitting one, anyway. And so everybody in the chamber would be agog. During the statement by Rishi Sunak about the contaminated blood scandal. The Eye, day of shame for Britain. Blood scandal cover-up killed thousands. The Eye also carries the Prime Minister's words for its headline. It adds that the Prime Minister apologized for the state's callousness and cruelty. But it quotes one grieving daughter saying his apology was not worth the paper it's written on. Now, I'm looking like this because it's possible that there is a delivery. No, yes, no. No, I think it was somebody who simply wanted to get a pint. Even I don't have a pint at this hour of the morning. 8:10. Ooh, no. Right, the Eye also carries the Prime Minister's words for his headline. It adds that the Prime Minister apologized for the state's callousness and cruelty. But it quotes one grieving daughter saying his apology was not worth the paper it's written on. And in some ways, I have to go along with her, because all the right words will be said, but will they be meant? And 9 times out of 10, when it comes to government, no matter which level, it's all mealy-mouthed stuff. Is this going to be the same, despite the hanging of heads, the self-flagellation, the admittance that a huge mistake was made and then was covered up? The Telegraph, a day of shame for the British state. The Telegraph reports the government will announce a plan for compensation on Tuesday, that's today, and that it is expected to top £10 billion. The Infected Blood Inquiries report recommended a compensation scheme to be set up immediately for victims. Yes, right. It looks like it's going to find widespread sympathy and support, so go ahead and set it up immediately. The Infected Blood Inquiries report recommended a compensation scheme to be set up immediately for victims and bereaved families. Elsewhere, actress Dame Judi Dench is pictured with the first seedling from the sycamore gap tree felled last year, which she planted at Chelsea's flower show. That's a nice gesture. Our gal Suzanne Mouchot told us a couple of years ago that little trees are symbols of hope, and that on the site of the Twin Towers, which were bombed by terrorists, there is, out of all the rubble and collapsed buildings falling down, there is a little pear tree which somehow avoided being hit and crushed, and is seen as a symbol of rebirth, regeneration. And that is a lovely touch, that it was saved and is there to show the way for a fight back. And I'm sure, despite the grief, the victims and their representatives will fight back. That is human nature. That is the human spirit. That is, we are devastated, but we will take our message of sorrow and grief and need for reform out into the shires and into those places where they can do most good. The Mail, day that shames the British state. A landmark report blasts horrifying failures that led to more than 3,000 deaths. A chilling cover-up hid the truth for over 40 years. The Prime Minister and NHS boss make historic apology to victims. But families fear no one will ever have to face justice. On the front page, a woman holds a picture. A woman holds a picture of her husband, a victim of the infected blood scandal. The paper's tough line on familiar concerns and families concerned that no one will face criminal justice over the scandal. We'll have to see. It depends how much Rishi Sunak means his apology. He's a good orator, that we know. He talked his way through 2 budgets. Buffaloed all of us. The Mirror, infected blood scandal. Lies, cover-ups, evidence destroyed. Make guilty, face justice, says the Mirror. And it pictures 12 faces of victims of the infected blood scandal. It calls the scandal a betrayal on a massive scale by those in power who were supposed to protect us all. The paper calls for the guilty to face justice. The Guardian, day of shame, deadly cover-up of blood scandal finally exposed. The Guardian quotes inquiry chair Sir Brian Langstaff, who said the scandal largely, though not entirely, could have been avoided. But successive governments and others did not pursue patient safety or put it first. Well, that says it all. The Mirror's got it right for once. The Financial Times. Another shocker. The ICC requests arrest warrants for Israeli and Hamas leaders. Very, very difficult on this. Will it stop if such warrants were issued? And we are very fond nowadays of harking back and suing people and arresting them and punishing them for crimes they committed 20, 30, 40 years ago. So I see no reason why they can't do this one as well. The International Criminal Court is requesting an arrest warrant for Israel's The ICC prosecutor is requesting arrest warrants for Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and senior Hamas leaders over alleged war crimes. That's the main story on the Financial Times. The broadsheet says the requests have provoked a fierce reaction from Israel and the United States, which describes it as outrageous. The paper observes that if ICC judges decided to issue warrants, it would mark the first time the court had issued a warrant for a Western-backed leader. I see no reason why we should treat ourselves any differently to the way we would treat anybody else. The Americans and the Australians are right in the sense that our politicians must be unafraid to make tough decisions. But this is a bit different, where so much could be avoided, where triumphalism has abounded, and where people have died in the most penurious of circumstances. Now, as usual, there is a bit of a pause for a grin. Well, that's my phone going, but I can't recognize the number, and I'm in the middle of a broadcast, and so it can wait. They can leave a message. And the one where Matt Perry visits Courtney Cox from beyond the grave. The star reveals she feels a ghostly presence. The cast of TV's sitcom Friends is on the front page of the Daily Star. The tabloid reports on Courtney Cox telling us U.S. broadcaster CBS that her late co-star, Matthew Perry, visits me a lot, and she can sense his spirit around for sure. Meanwhile, it sounds as if that this is somebody trying to get through. Forgive me, it may be It may be the boss trying to get through. It looks vaguely familiar. I No, I'm not. I'm sufficiently naive about these things. I can't get through to wherever even a message has been left just for the moment. So I'm going to wait and. I'm going to wait until a natural break, and then we'll be able to check. I'm not normally thrown by phone calls, but the fact of the matter is, if somebody calls 3 times like that, it does sound as if perhaps they need to get through and leave a message for me. And so, whoever is calling, just give me a few minutes, and I will try to attend to it. What is the time? The time is 9:27. It is 9:27. Let us. Oh dear. Well, that's who we are, and we're a little bit under the gun right now, and it probably shows the stress and strain in my face. That's pretty serious stuff this morning on the headlines, and we'll we'll try and we'll try and play something that is. Oh, should we have a tall tale? Yes, let's have a tall tale. I'm a very accomplished flyer now, but way back in the '60s, when commercial jets still were being tested on commercial flights, then getting on board an aircraft was something of a trauma. We sat there hoping like hell that the pilot knew what he was doing and that he would get us down at the other end. And of course, the pilots didn't know what they were doing, and they did get us down at the other end. But then again, air crashes became front page news, and it seemed always there was a crash just before I was supposed to fly. And so I wasn't the best flyer. Then one morning, somebody at the station, radio station I was working at, said, "Oh, someone's got to go up in a light aircraft and do traffic reports." Ha ha ha, I said, "they're not getting me into that." Guess who they came knocking on the door to? Hayes, you go out, you do the traffic reports. Well, I had no choice. I couldn't say no. I had to do it. So indeed, I did. And away I went each morning, getting up at
You can
about
hear me, but you
4:30,
can't see me.
driving out to the airport and getting there about 5 o'clock. To a Cessna 172.
Heaven only knows what I've done this morning, and that's because I've done it in a hurry, and I should know better.
Passing on information about what was happening in the traffic. Wow. Took me 2 or 3 days to get used to the fact that this is what I was going to do twice a day. But then eventually I began to calm down and began to quite enjoy it. I enjoyed it so much, in fact, that I fell asleep one morning. I dozed.
If I could just get a picture.
I think your station is calling you. And I heard the magic words, and now we're going up above the city,
what I've done,
above the traffic,
what we're doing.
what's happening on the roads.
You just have to forgive me. I knew it was going to be this sort of Tuesday. I just got a feeling in my bones. So thank goodness I apologize beforehand.
Wow. What a report. And then as we turned the aircraft and flew away, I realized
I just don't know where we are.
Bus terminal.
No idea. Can't even stop it.
And I've been looking down at the buses congregated before they set out on their morning routes. There's nothing like a great report. The pilot turned to me and he said,
no idea at all.
You've got this job licked. It's a bit boring, isn't it? And I said, well, yeah, it is really. No, I mean, not much to say other than what's going on in the traffic. I try to brighten it up a little bit and quip here and there. But right, tomorrow morning he said, you get in the left-hand seat and I'll teach you to fly. And he did. And I was fortunate to have almost a year and a half of flying experience. I logged 400 hours on the Cessna. I logged a couple of hours on a twin-engine aircraft and a couple of hours on other aircraft. I was the luckiest man in the world. And he put me into some pretty awful conditions. And we would fly up. I would give a report, and then we would do some what's known as touch and goes. In other words, you land, you circle, you land, you circle, just to get some practice in. And we did. One morning, a gust of wind took it, and I thought that the wing was going to be ripped off. Well, he grabbed the stick and managed to get us out of trouble. But it just shows the sort of thing that if you're going to be a professional pilot, that you have to put up with. So confident did we become on flying around together that he would set little tests. And he would say, there are clouds on the North Shore over the mountains. Why don't we go over and see if we can break the wings of this aircraft?
Why don't we?
Yes, let's do that. And we would deliberately fly into this mucky weather and get churned around and watch the wings, knowing full well that they wouldn't fall off. But daring. And it did turn out to be a lot of fun. I have to say, it turned out to be a lot of fun. A couple of other incidents. I used to take VIPs up in the afternoon and say, okay, here are some pollution issues and so on and so forth. And one afternoon we got my good friend, but also a colleague, Mrs. Grace McCarthy, who was the Deputy Prime Minister at the time. And we got out onto the runway and away we went. And a jet had taken off just before us, and it was a fairly still evening. So you can't see them, but the whirls of air caused by the jet's wings are still there. And sure enough, we got 3 or 4 feet from the ground, and away it went. We damn near lost the cabinet minister. The Deputy Prime Minister. Once again, he came to the rescue, flitted over, and we managed to save the day. The other item that I think was worth reporting is that we flew backwards. Have you ever flown backwards? He said. And this young chap was about 21 or 22. He was a nice young fellow. We bought him a helmet and nicknamed him the Red Baron. he was to die in tragic circumstances in a plane crash later on. But he was a nice young man and very helpful and lots of fun. And so we went, and he said, we need a marker. And the plane travels forward at about 100 miles or so an hour. Actually, it's a little over 72 miles for the takeoff speed. And he said that the wind this morning is particularly strong. So he put the nose of the aircraft into the strong wind, and we watched the bridge below. And although we were keeping airspeed, the plane started to travel backwards. So here we were in reverse, in a plane, in the sky, watching the bridge recede, while the plane powered forward at the correct speed, and the wind pushed us back. And that's the sort of nonsense that we would get up to. And there are lots of other stories I can tell you about my flying experience. But perhaps this last one will bring something of a smile to your lips. I was trying very hard to impress my, who later became my wife, my girlfriend at the time, Valerie. And I said, would you like to come flying here and come out with me this afternoon, and we can go and we'll go and do some traffic reports, and we'll also take a look at the Vancouver from the air. How lovely. Yes, she said, that'd be super. Anyway, we got settled into the plane. I taxied out, checked with the tower. Yes, we're all okay. We were about to take off. There's nothing in our way. Rolled it out onto the runway and roared down the runway ready to take off. The tower came on and said, MLA, MLA, the call letters of the aircraft. You're going down the runway the wrong way. Oh my goodness me. We had to switch to a halt and take off the right way. She still married me. Well, that's my flying experience. I suppose I should fly off now. Till the next story, the next tall tale. Toodaloo.
Well, I really have got it into a muck now, so I'm going to go away and come back in 5 minutes' time, and hopefully have sorted everything out. Toodle pip.